Welcome students to the present class on Westernization. In the previous class, I have been explaining to you about the 5 important forms of social change. Initially, I was explaining about industrialization, urbanization and modernization. We stopped with modernization. Even though I have been explaining these 3 concepts under 3 different headings, they are not watertight compartments. You cannot think that industrialization is entirely different from urbanization and urbanization totally a different process than the modernization, because industrialization leads to urbanization and modernization takes place in the long run when there is industrialization and change in the way of life leading to modernization and urbanization. All these 3 things take place simultaneously. There is one more process relating to modernization, which we call as Westernization. Westernization is a kind of process that has been taking place in all forms of societies, especially in the eastern part of the globe, because when we divide the globe as east and west, the western part of the globe had modernized itself very earlier. When there was industrialization, naturally it led to urbanization and modernization. The eastern part of the globe, because it was developing little later, it had to emulate or it has to adopt the ways of technology and the living standards as it had happened in the western part of the globe, and this process we call as Westernization. In this class, I am going to elaborately discuss about Westernization and then about globalization. Due to the increasing transportation and speedy communication facilities, along with frequent travels and migrations between countries, there is lot of exchange of ideology, technologies and value. People were traveling between countries for several reasons, for trade or even for education purpose. They are traveling, in course of which automatically they have to adopt and emulate the culture of different countries and societies to which they migrate and come back to their own native place. And this has resulted in a sort of adopting Western culture. Due to this type of culture contact, the entire lifestyle of people in different societies is changing to a new pattern. Broadly speaking, the Western countries are considered the sources of innovation, both technological and ideological, and hence they are imitated by the other countries in several respects. This process of Westernization refers to the assimilation of Western culture, the social process of becoming familiar with or converting to the customs and practices of Western civilization. Some important features of Westernization are technology and rationalism. Westernization includes assimilation of Western culture. It is the social process of becoming familiar with or converting to the customs and practices of Western civilization. Westernization is also referred to Occidentalization. Since Occident means Western world, Westernization is also known as Occidentalization. This is a process whereby societies adopt Western culture in such matters as technology, industry, law, politics, economics, lifestyle, diet, language, religion, philosophy and also values. Westernization has been a pervasive and accelerating influence across the world in the last few centuries before globalization was initiated. Westernization was rampant during European expansion and colonialism on native societies. Different degrees of domination, destruction, resistance, survival, adaptation and modification of native culture may follow inter-ethnic contact. M.N. Srinivas, pioneer of sociology in India, uses the term Westernization to indicate change that took place in India during the British rule in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Westernization implies dress or style of dressing, manners, change in the medium of instruction and use of language for conversation. Westernization started having its impact on the elite because of the exposure to new education system and their contact with the Britishers. The Brahmins and upper caste got into this process earlier because they entered into new occupations first. Next to Westernization, we have to learn about globalization. Globalization is being thought to be a modern phenomenon, but the origin of globalization could be traced to the age of discoveries and voyages in European countries. Globalization is the process of international integration arising from the interchange of worldviews, products, ideas, resources and other aspects of culture. Sociologists Martin Albro and Elizabeth Kind define globalization as all those processes by which the people of the world are incorporated into a single world society. Advancements in transportation and telecommunications and also internet are the major factors in globalization, because they generated further interdependence of trade and economic activities. The International Monetary Fund, that is the IMF, identified 4 basic aspects of globalization. These are 1. Trade and transactions, 2. Capital and investment movement, 3. Migration and movement of people, and finally, dissemination of knowledge. Anthony Giddens explains globalization as the intensification of worldwide social relations which link geographically separated localities in such a way that local happenings are shaped by events occurring many miles away. Globalization can be viewed from certain angles. In economic globalization, we notice increasing economic interdependence of national economies across the world through rapid increase in cross-border movement of goods, services, technology and capital. Economic globalization comprises of the globalization of production, markets, competitions, corporations and industry. The current trend is largely accounted for by developed economies integrating with less developed economies by means of foreign direct investment and reduction of trade barriers. It also includes migration and economic reforms. The next aspect of globalization is cultural globalization. Cultural globalization has increased cross-cultural contacts. Cultural practices including traditional music, dances and arts of different nations fuse with each other. There is fusion of art, foods, food products, edible items and preparations, that is recipes of various culture are happily tried and purchased by people of another culture. Good examples are the items, food items we get from McDonald's and the liking for Chinese food and Indian dosas and idlis cherished by the Western people. All these things have crossed their national border and are enjoyed by people of different countries. Not only this, the modern values of the West have crept into the traditional cultures of India and other eastern countries. But this has resulted in decrease in the uniqueness of each culture. Another important factor is multilingualism. Multilingualism has emerged as an inevitable aspect of globalization. This has facilitated sharing of information. Globalization has its impact on the global natural environment. Environmental challenges such as climatic change, cross-boundary challenges of water and air pollutions and excess of fishing in the ocean need to be solved. It could be done by international cooperation. The challenges of deforestation has to be tackled by all nations because it is a byproduct of globalization. There are advantages and also certain disadvantages of globalization. First, I will explain to you the advantages of globalization. There is a worldwide market under globalization. Secondly, there is steady cash flow. Thirdly, there is increase in production and choice of products. Under globalization, world power is created instead of compartmentalization. Under globalization, we can observe speedy influx of information. Sixthly, corporate and governments are trying to solve problems together. The seventh one is socially mankind has become tolerant and open. The next one is the governments of nations show concern for each other. Ninthly, more employment opportunities are available. Tenthly, global connectivity. There is a very good global connectivity system with the help of internet and other such facilities. Now, we will see the disadvantages of globalization. Many people in developed nations are losing their jobs because of outsourcing. Secondly, there is transferring of communicable diseases and social degeneration. Thirdly, there is the threat of corporate ruling the world. Fourth one is, it might lead to another colonization. The next one is that globalization leads to loss of cultural identity because Western ideas are being imposed upon the Eastern thought. The sixth one, it has resulted in terrorism and criminal activities. The next one, it has spoiled the food habits of the people. The eighth one is, there is environmental degradation. These are the advantages and disadvantages of globalization. Other than this, students, now we are coming across a new idea called global transitional movement. What is global transitional movement? That is, other than the global market and global economy, people are concerned with the social aspects of the people in different parts of the nation. They want to improve the living standards and the quality of life, and therefore, they talk about this transitional movement. Global transitional movement is a kind of movement that focuses on large scale, often global issues. They take place across societies as international organizations seek global change in the status of women, child labor, rights of indigenous people, global warming and animal rights. These are not specific to any society, but they are common to the whole mankind, and therefore, people take interest in these aspects and they want to solve these issues. Whatever may be the case, we may know the advantages of globalization. We also understand the disadvantages of globalization, but we have to undergo this process of globalization whether we like it or not. There are years to come and we are waiting to see the result of globalization. Now, students, we have talked about different forms of social change. Some changes are pervading the whole nation and some changes are very specific to certain parts of the globe, but still change takes place in different forms in all the societies. Sometimes it is industrialization. When we talk about industrialization, it is already completed in certain parts of the world, and in certain other underdeveloped nations it is starting to develop. Then talking about urbanization and modernization, they are the byproducts of industrialization. And westernization, although it is very much common to the eastern part of the world, it is taking place in different forms in different parts of the world. In India, it is different from the way it takes place in China, but westernization is taking place. It has become quite unavoidable to undergo this process of westernization. People are taking different models in modernizing their society. Sometimes it is United Kingdom, sometimes it is United States of America, or sometimes it is some country in the Europe, but the process is definitely taking place. Now, students, I want to pose some questions to you. The questions: 1. Explain westernization. 2. Elaborately analyze globalization process. 3. what are the advantages and disadvantages of globalization? We have been learning about 5 important forms of social change. In the next class, I will explain to you one more interesting process that is very much peculiar to Indian society. Till then, wait. Goodbye.